and encouragement to go to Australia.
Order. I've cautioned the member.
No one stood up.
Chris Ockenvold.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Normally I say what a pleasure it is to follow on from the previous speaker, but I'm afraid on this occasion I don't intend to say that because I was very disappointed in the depths to which that member goes in seeking to make some sort of a snide personal point. And I am very disappointed. I had thought better of him. I'm sure his family did too. However, we get disappointed in life. But, Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in favour of the Appropriation 2012-2013 Estimates Bill, the budget delivered by this government for the brighter future that this budget and the government seeks to protect, particularly from the sort of criticism that we've been hearing from the other side of the House. And let's not be misled, Mr. Speaker, we do have to protect the future from that sort of needless, senseless, foundless criticism. It needs to be protected from an opposition whose scant regard for our future prosperity was manifest in their own period in government, and the future prosperity of our children and grandchildren. Our need to protect them from it is confused and concerning because we don't know why they're adopting the approach they're taking. They sit in the crossbenches, they sit in the opposition benches as sirens singing for our nation to shipwreck. But this is a tune we are glad to change. And goodness me, the singing sirens, what an astonishing performance we've had from... Well, some of them you can... It requires, Honourable Morris Williamson, a little bit of imagination, I would agree. Especially when you hear Mr. Clayton Cosgrove singing, the Honourable Clayton Cosgrove. Goodness me. And then from New Zealand First, oh, such hand-wringing. Oh, such an end of the world, such accusations. One only has to look back a little bit over the years in Parliament to wonder at such sounds coming from New Zealand First, of all parties. This budget, you want to talk about the budget? I'm very happy to do that, and I'll do it for Mr. Little, because I know he's keen to see New Zealand's future develop. And this budget, Andrew, this budget promotes economic growth. This forecasts the growth at about 3% over the next 4 years, higher than Europe at 0.5%. Higher than the UK, over just 1%, higher than Japan at 1.5%, and the US and Canada at 2%. We're expected to have, Mr. Speaker, around the same growth rate as Australia, about 3%. The Green Party, represented by Gareth Hughes' speech, spoke of the budget as not promoting growth. He couldn't be wronger. Responsibly managing government finances in testing times, keeping the government on track for surplus in 2014-15 is the task of this budget, Mr. Speaker. Our move towards surplus safeguards our international credibility and help, for instance, to keep our interest rates lower for longer. Did Labor do that? No. It takes the pressure off the exchange rate. I'll say that again. It takes the pressure off the exchange rate. Did Labor do that? Oh, no. It reduces future finance costs. I'll say that bit again. It reduces future finance costs. Did Labor do that? Who knew? And they've gone wonderfully quiet. This budget has been received positively by both Standard & Poor's and Fitch and Moody's. It's not just National who say it's a good idea. It's the people who measure these things say it is. This represents a huge turnaround, Mr. Speaker, given the impacts of the 2008 recession, the global financial crisis, and wait for it, the thing that never happened in Labor land, the Canterbury earthquakes. The growth is based on strong fundamentals and our sound economic and financial institutions, rather than the money-burning fiscal irrationality of the opposition, and we all had to endure that, Mr. Speaker. The Labor opposition proposed a capital gains tax on all businesses, the reason being, the only reason I've heard from them, being that other people do it. As if that makes it perfect in every way. And the cancellation of a successful 90-day trial period, which would have put 60,000 jobs created in the past 2 years under serious risk. Do you want to talk about that a little bit longer? Do you want to talk about that? Where do we hear criticism of that 90 days? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure Mr. Speaker wants to talk about it, but does the Labor opposition want to talk about it? Oh, I'm sure you do. Except that it has worked. It gets people into work which wouldn't get to work otherwise. Oh, yes. Labor opposition proposed extra transport charges and lifting interest rates by borrowing billions more, which would have put at risk the positive economic growth this nation has enjoyed in 9 of the past 10 quarters under this government. You want me to say that bit again? 9 of the past 10 quarters under this government. The Labor opposition proposed minimum wage increases which would have cost thousands of jobs. Labor opposition has shown it has the wrong recipe for building a more competitive international economy. Why is that? Why is it? Because I'm sure they're well-meaning people, except the previous speaker. I don't think he meant well at all. But normally Labor speakers mean well, so why is it that they get it horribly wrong? It's because they're trying to answer their trade union masters rather than the economic reality. And we all know about self-seeking trade unionists, how they lurk in the opposition benches, lurking there. This budget maintains our commitment to rebuilding Christchurch. Almost 1.6 billion of the 5.5 billion Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Fund was spent in 2010-2011. Most of the remaining funding is expected to be spent by 2015. But Cantabrians are not the only ones who will be supported, Mr. Speaker, through hard times. We'll keep protecting vulnerable New Zealanders through working for families, New Zealand superannuation and welfare benefits. And I have been remarkably proud of the Prime Minister who, when we went into this, when we realised that we had gone into the recession during Labor's last term, he said we must support the vulnerable, we must support those who are on benefits and entitlements, and he has done that. He has done that. And we will continue to support people to help themselves, investing $287.5 billion on education and training. This is an investment in the people and the future of New Zealand. Another vital role of this budget, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure the great work that's been done in the health field is continued. When have we ever seen a minister... let's remember, Honourable Tony Rowell was a spokesperson on health, an attack politician on that side of the House. And he did a wonderful job in speaking about the frailties, the infirmities, and the need for change in the health. He then did that transformation of becoming a very effective Minister of Health. And let's be honest about it, all party politics aside, he's an outstanding minister. And then he got a second term as Health Minister. So it's amazing. Over 4 years, we'll commit almost $1.5 billion extra to our public health service. This will develop far more operations. This will continue to support the growth in health services. Mr. Speaker, just to finalise, this budget allows the government to reprioritise $65 million in operating expenditure over the next 4 years, as well as the, $7.73 billion government expenditure overall, contributing to 33,100 offenders accessing drug and alcohol treatment in prisons, 7,855 more rehabilitation places, 2,950 more prisoners in education and training, 7,500 prisoners in community offender support to find real jobs, 41,100 more rehabilitation places for community offenders, 6,000 more integration support program places. This budget allows the government to take the vital steps in addressing prisoner reoffending. These steps, Mr. Speaker, in health, in law and order, in the rebuilding of Christchurch and in every other field of government will build the brighter future we campaigned on and we have protected and that we on this side of the House are so proud of. This budget invests in New Zealand's future. It will stimulate new jobs, deliver better services for families, while keeping the government on track to surplus in 2014-2015. I encourage those on the crossbenches, those in the opposition benches, to join us and say, well done, Mr. English, and well done, Mr. John Key's-led government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I call Catherine Delahunty.
Te lofa lava, Mr.